Hello everyone. Today, I pawned Strutted, a medium difficulty machine on Hack the Box. Strutted is a retired free box, but honestly, it still deserves some love. This machine revolves around exploiting an Apache Strut's vulnerability. I started by gaining a shell as the Tomcat user. Then, I found exposed credentials in the Tomcat users.xml file, which led to a shell as a regular user. Finally, I escalated to root using Tcpdump sudo rights. I always use tmux to keep my workspace clean and run and used services in the background. Before I get started, I use the ping command to check for a response from the server I'm testing. If I get a response, I carry on. And if you're having connection problems, try changing UDP to TCP. As always, we kick things off with a map scan. Looks like we're dealing with a Linux Ubuntu web server, located at strutted.htb. I'll go ahead and add that to my /etc/hosts file. Now, let's navigate to the site and see what we're working with. Alright, I always love seeing upload your file, especially with that tempting little text at the bottom. I'm going to click the download button at the top and take a look. There were a lot of files here, but most aren't useful for now, except for the service versions. The box is called Strutted, so I'm assuming it's built around struts too. I'll pass the version into Google. After a bit of research, I found that Struts handles the file upload functionality. We can exploit a bug that lets us upload any file we want into a writable location on the box. First, I created a simple test.gif file to upload and inspected the results using Burp Suite. Here's the idea. I'll upload a malicious.war file into the Tomcat web apps directory, since the vulnerability lets me control where the file is stored. This becomes a perfect entry point. I found an exploit online, cloned the repository, set up a Python virtual environment, and installed the required dependencies. Next, I edited the exploit to ensure it parses info correctly. Then ran the script. Immediately after, I grabbed the Tomcat users.xml file and harvested credentials. I've got a password, and the first thing that comes to mind is password reuse. This is a common security misstep, where the same credentials are used across multiple accounts or services. So, I ran cat/etc/password to enumerate all the local users on the system. This gives us a list of usernames we can potentially target. From that list, one user stood out, James. Let's test the credentials we found against James's account. And yes, success. We now have a low-privilege shell as James. At this point, the next logical step is to check for privilege escalation opportunities. I used the command sudo l to list the commands James can run with sudo rights. What I found was interesting. James has permission to run tcpdump with sudo without a password prompt. Now, tcpdump is a legitimate network packet analyzer. But when misconfigured like this, it can be abused for privilege escalation. Here's how it works. Tcpdump has an option to run a custom script or program using the Z flag after it finishes capturing packets, because we can run tcpdump as root, and we control the script it runs. We can use this to execute a root-level payload. So, I wrote a small bash script that opens a reverse shell back to my attacking machine. I saved the script, made it executable with chmod +x, and prepared my listener using netcat on my local port. Then, I executed tcpdump using sudo, and passed the Z option to point to my malicious script. Once tcpdump finished running, it triggered my script. And just like that, boom, my listener caught a root shell. We've officially gained root access on Strutted. This final step shows how even harmless-looking permissions can lead to full system compromise when users have sudo rights over powerful tools like tcpdump. Thanks for watching the walkthrough. If you found this educational or helpful, consider hitting that like button and subscribing.